Nobody can betray you the way a friend can. She had known this woman for 22 years. 22 years of shared secrets, of hospital waiting rooms, of I would never. And she wouldn't. Gloria knew her. I watched them together for years. That friendship was real. And then one afternoon, she picked up the phone and called the one person in the world who could use everything she knew. Not in anger. Not drunk. Not in a moment she'd regret. She made herself a cup of tea first. I found out later and I just sat with that detail for the longest time. The tea. Because that's not emotion getting the better of someone. That's not a slip. That is a decision being made comfortable. That is someone settling in. And the reason it worked, the reason it landed so perfectly and did so much damage, is that she had 22 years of material. She didn't have to guess where the soft spots were. She had been trusted with them. That's what we're talking about today. Not the people you were born to. The people you went looking for. Welcome to Diary After 50. I'm Gloria. If you're new, stay with me. This is going somewhere important. If you were here for part 1, you already know I told you this one was worse. I wasn't performing. And I'm not going to spend time convincing you, just keep watching. Subscribe if you haven't. And when part 3 drops, you'll want the notification on. I'll explain why at the end. Here is the thing about family betrayal that people don't say. When family hurts you, there is almost always a story behind it. Generational damage. Someone who was also broken before you arrived. You can follow the wound backwards and find where it started. It doesn't make it okay. But it gives it a shape you can hold. A friend is different. A friend is someone you chose. After everything you'd already been through. After you already knew what betrayal looked like. You looked at this person, watched how they moved through the world, and decided, yes. This one is safe. That decision is the thing that makes it so much worse when you're wrong. Because the damage a friend can do is not random. It's specific. A friend who has known you for 10, 15, 20 years has watched you heal. They've seen what you rebuilt after the last time something broke you. They know which version of you is the real one, not the one you perform publicly, but the one that comes out at 11 p.m. when you're tired and honest. That access is a gift when it's protected. When it isn't. I watched a friendship dissolve once that I will never fully stop thinking about. 2 women, close for 15 years. And when the trust finally broke, when one of them decided the friendship was over and chose her exit, she didn't just leave. She left in a way that used everything. Every confidence. Every shared history. Every, remember when you told me. She didn't have to fabricate anything. She didn't have to lie. She just opened the file she'd been keeping and handed it to the right person. And the one left behind said something to me that stayed. The worst part isn't what she did. The worst part is that I gave her everything she needed to do it. That's the sentence I want you to carry into the next section. Because what friends can do with access is one thing. What lovers can do with intimacy is something else entirely. Ominous. A friend knows a lot about you. But a lover has been inside the architecture. There's a difference between knowing someone's story and knowing what their face does when a specific fear gets triggered. Between knowing their past and knowing which sentence, said at which angle, on which kind of night, will bring the whole thing down. Lovers learn that. Not always on purpose. Sometimes just by being close long enough. And most of the time that knowledge is sacred. That's the whole point of love, to be that known by someone and have them stay anyway. But I want you to think about what happens when someone takes that knowledge and decides to use it on the way out. I knew a man, kind face, patient, the kind of person everyone liked immediately. He spent years inside a woman's life. Long enough to know what she needed to hear to feel safe. Long enough to know what silence did to her. Long enough to know the old story, the one from before they met, that she'd never fully stopped carrying. When it ended, he didn't guess. He aimed. One conversation. Maybe 20 minutes. And he walked back through every room she'd ever let him into and turned the lights off on his way out. She told me about it months later. Not crying. Past crying by then. She said, I taught him how to do it. I just didn't know that's what I was doing. Alright, I need to stop for a second. If you're watching this and you know someone who needs to hear this, a friend, a daughter, somebody you love who's sitting inside the wrong trust right now, share this video with them. Not tomorrow. Right now. Because part 3 is coming, and honestly, this whole series is something people need to sit with together. Okay. Back. That's the specific cruelty of romantic betrayal at this stage of life. By the time you're older, your wounds aren't fresh anymore. They're old breaks, healed over, built into who you are. Most people can't see them. Most people don't even know they're there. A partner who's been inside that architecture can find them in the dark. And here's the part that's hard to say. Sometimes they don't even know they're doing it consciously. Sometimes a person just reaches for what's available. What's familiar. The same way you might raise your voice in the same way your father did, not because you plan to, but because that's the pattern your hands already know. That doesn't make it less devastating. But it does make the next thing I'm going to say make sense. Why do we keep choosing people who can do this to us? Not once. Not as a young person who didn't know better. But again, at 50, at 60, at 70, same story, different face, different name. I used to think it was bad judgment. Or low self-worth. That's what most people say. And there's some truth in it. But I think it's simpler than that and harder than that at the same time. I think we keep choosing people who feel familiar. And some of us, many of us, grew up in environments where love and damage arrived together. Where the person who held you was also the person who scared you. Where being known felt dangerous but also felt like the closest thing to being loved you had. And then we grew up. And we healed enough to function. And we went out into the world looking for love. And we found people who felt like home. The friend who made you feel seen in a way nobody else could, but held things loosely. The partner who understood you completely, but sometimes used that understanding like a blade. We didn't choose the danger. We chose the feeling that lived right next to it. And told ourselves we could have one without the other. That's not stupidity. That's not weakness. That's a very human thing, choosing the familiar shape of love even when the familiar shape has always had a sharp edge somewhere in it. But here's what I want you to know, the pattern isn't a life sentence. The pattern is just the last thing you haven't looked at yet. And that is exactly where part 3 is going. Part 3 is the one I almost didn't make. Not because it's too dark. But because it's too close. Because the person it asks you to look at isn't a friend who betrayed you or a lover who used what you gave them. Almost whispering. Part 3 is about the one who was there before all of them. The one who wrote the original pattern. The one whose voice you still hear sometimes when you're making a decision about who to trust. I'll see you there. This is Gloria. And this has been Diary After 50.